It's got to come this way, way too much.
Working with roundwood and taking techniques which have been there for years in traditional sort of green oak framing, techniques that are used out in Canada, America and Scandinavia for log building, bringing those together to form structures such as this, which I feel are quite aesthetically beautiful structures, but yet use the raw material of the forest. This gives the whole emphasis back onto what we're growing and how we're managing our land. This is sweet chestnut coppice. And coppicing is the process whereby we cut down a broadleaf tree during the winter months when it's dormant and the sap has gone back towards the roots. And when spring comes, it reshoots, and over a number of years it grows these poles. And these poles are then harvested when we need them for various uses, from craft work through to building work. And the process of coppicing can go on continuously for hundreds of years. In the UK, we're really fortunate that we've got more coppice woodlands than probably anywhere else in the world. It's a real resource that we need to keep using. A lot of it is being unmanaged, and really we should be getting all of this coppice woodland back onto cycle and using this renewable resource. We've got to stop designing buildings which are beautiful things in our imagination, but then we search all around the globe to find the materials. Where we need to start is, what materials have we got available locally? Let's go into the forest, meet the local woodsman. The local woodsman will be able to say, yes, we've got 20 larch trees, we've got half an acre of sweet chestnut, half an acre of hazel, that's all ready to cut, and then design the houses and the buildings from that. That way we're managing our local resource and also being able to produce buildings locally made out of those materials. And it's that connection that really inspires me to do more of this work. The joints we use in roundwood timber framing, some of them come from traditional green oak type sort of timber frames, others come from log building, and some of them are unique to roundwood timber framing itself. What I have here is a scribing tool which is used in log building, and what this does is it transfers the profile of one piece of timber on another. By doing that, one can get a very nice snug fit as the two pieces of timber come together. You'll be able to see on these joints here that we've transferred the profile of one log onto another and then cut out that shape. What it might look like is that this is just one piece of log lapped onto the other, but actually the joint is far more detailed than that. Within each of these joints there is a dovetail cog which is notched in from one log to the other. What that does is checks that there's no movement of the logs, but also ensures that when the frame becomes vertical, the downward force is not on the joint, it's actually transferred into the timber itself. And this is what makes these buildings structurally sound. Okay, this is the joint at the top of the cruck where they cross over, and Rudy's just doing a bit of hand scribing just to get it to seat down the final amount. The scribe done with the scribing tool has given quite a nice fit. The profiles are all nicely snug all the way around. It's just got to come down a tiny bit more, so he's just scribing this edge to take a little bit off here, which will just lower it down, and we'll get a really tight, snug fit between the two. It's looking good. You'll notice that in these buildings there's a lot of ratchet straps down onto the framing bed, but also for when we actually come to raise, we keep the ratchet straps on. The reason for that is the joints we're cutting are designed for the building when it's in an upright position. During the raise process, the building gets lifted from a horizontal to a vertical position, and then the joints go through a lot of tension. So putting the ratchet straps on and leaving them on during the raise supports the joints during that process. We've also got timber dogs here. Timber dogs are another tool used for securing the pieces of timber together. The ends of them are shaped at at different angles so that they work with the grain on two pieces of wood that are lying across one another. Very quick and easy for securing a piece of roundwood onto another. Lawson cypress that we've got here is not commonly used as a building material in the UK, but in America, where it's known as Port Orford cypress, it's been used for many years in construction purposes. It's also used in Japan in some of the temple buildings. The wonderful thing about it is it has its own natural durability. So we're talking about a wood that doesn't need any chemical treatments, and we can use it in its raw form, felled and jointed and then put up straight into a frame. And here we are amidst a plantation of Lawson cypress and beech. The Lawson cypress would have been planted as a nurse crop for the beech. Couple of rows of it which would grow fast and encourage the beech to grow up nice and straight. What's actually happened is it's never been managed, and the beech has been quite badly attacked by squirrels, and the Lawson cypress has grown on into very tall, thin poles, not of much use in commercial forestry. However, in roundwood framing these are ideal poles. The reason for that is they're slow grown and small diameter, and a slow-grown pole will have the growth rings much closer together, and with a softwood like this Lawson cypress, that's just what we're looking for. So this is a plantation of potential roundwood buildings. This we're making here is an underfloor support beam, and Jacob is just fitting a staddle into it. We call these legs staddles, mainly coming from traditional granaries in timber framing, where a stone was supported, a bit like a stone, looks like a stone mushroom, and the timber frame would sit on top. We use wooden staddles to support the floor of the building where it's not attached to the main frame. We start with a round log, and we run these string lines along to make sure that where we're creating flats on the log, they're all in parallel and all in the same plane. Then mortises are cut out and a staddle with a tenon on top is inserted in there. This will eventually also be pegged through, the whole beam turned upside down, and the floor joist, and then the flooring will sit on top of that. So this is a staddle post arriving. The guys are lifting it and fitting it onto the pad stone. First thing that we do when we put one of these in place is have a look how level it's going to sit on the stone. Quite often it's necessary to recut the bottom to get a nice flush fit. This one's actually looking pretty good. Once we're happy that that's level on there, then we'll look at marking out where the tenon is going to go on top, and that will be the next stage, working out the shoulder and the tenon, and also the height difference from the pad stone up to the shoulder is what we did with the level measurements and calculations earlier on in the build. With this particular staddle, the cut on the bottom isn't level, so when we put it on the pad stone there's quite a lot of movement. So hence we've put a few wedges in just to bring it up into the vertical, and we've looked at that by eye down both planes, and we're happy with the plane that's in now. So the next stage is to then get a flat piece of wood, and we'll use that to actually scribe round the profile of the pad stone it's going onto, and then we'll recut the base. And once the base is recut and it sits nicely on the pad stone, we can then measure up to the shoulder for the tenon. This is a simple roundwood timber frame and shows the basic components that we use in many frames. So you've got your main cruck poles riding up to the ridge pole in the centre, the jowl posts coming up, tie beams running across. This particular frame has got what we call an interrupted tie, in other words it's cut in the middle here, and then we have an underfloor tie running along the base which supports the floor joists and the floor, and the wind bracing is what the guys are just working on at the moment. So this is what I call your sort of simple DIY roundwood frame, quite easy to construct, something that small amount of poles and a few people could put together quite quickly to create an attractive and useful building. Okay, just setting up to measure out where the cuts are going to be for the feet at the bottom of the frame. Taking a measurement off the framing bed where I know the floor height is, and measuring back down. This all corresponds to the measurements we took with the level off the pad stones. Using a laser level because it clearly marks the curve on the timber and gives us a much more accurate line from which to follow with the saw. Each foot, each cut will be at a different distance from the floorboard height down to the pad stone, and those are the measurements we have, so each one has to be individually measured, get the exact angle for the cut. The laser line gives us a clear line which we can then scribe around with a pencil, and then we'll actually cut to that angle, and all being well, when it gets raised up on the framing bed it should come up nice and level with the feet sitting flat on the pad stone.